proposal. Welcome to the December meeting of the Bass Coast Shire Council meeting. We just had a little bit of a audition for Some Mothers Do Matter, and that's consequently delayed our meeting, and I apologise for that, as I was one of the main protagonists, myself and a transformer.
What do you mean main? You really are.
I don't think we need those sort of comments, Councillor, to say. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with Council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming, hopefully not as dramatically as the last time. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of the debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to the public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council's internet. In the event of technical issues with a live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members. They can be heard to speak. Remind people to the part of the meeting to turn off your mobile phones, or in the case of emergency, please advise the chair and switch to silent mode. I ask of a statement of acknowledgement. Bass Coast Shire Council acknowledges the Bunurong as the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waters and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and law. Bass Coast Shire Council celebrates the opportunity to embrace and empower the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island communities in their diversity. Bass Coast Shire Council will create opportunities for future recognition and respectful partnerships that will honour the traditional owners and custodians and Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander peoples. And I call on Councillor Lang to read the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I advise that there is an apology from Councillor David Brooks. There are no declarations of interest, and now I'll seek a resolution, or rather a move to the resolution that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 17th of September 2021 be confirmed. Councillor Bruce Kent and Councillor Tsari. Those in favour? Against? Carried. That brings us to public question time. I'll ask the CEO to read out, I'll read out the questions. I'll ask the CEO to provide the answers. The first one is from Malcolm Pinkerton. Topic is recycling and waste. Would council please provide the number of properties recycled waste is being picked up from for the period 1/7/2021 to 30/9/2021? The second part of that question, would council please provide the various proportional cost factors to determine the waste charge of $500.92 for 2021-2022?
Through the Mayor. The number of properties that are registered for Council's curbside collection service, including recycling, are increasing all the time. On the 1st of the 7th, 2021, this figure was 28,010. And by the 30th of the 9th, 2021, it was 28,167. Council's waste charge is set at a level that enables it to offset the projected operating costs and rolling 4-year average capital costs associated with the provision of a comprehensive waste management service to the Bass Coast community. Costs that are included in the cost recovery model are curbside waste collection, recycling costs, green waste, landfill operations including landfill levy, e.g. gas flaring and leachate management, average 4-year waste management capital costs, public place litter bin collection costs, net transfer station operating costs, waste management education costs, allocation of corporate overheads and management costs.
The next question is from Kim Lightfoot, and it's about council finances. Why did council fail to report its $40,000 share in Community Bank and all monies held in as cash in bank in the fourth and first quarterly financial reports when both again financially benefit? Would council please provide the number of ratepayers who are charged $500.92 for the yearly waste collection for the period 1/7/2021 to 30/9/2021?
Through the Mayor, the balance sheet contains the total value of cash and cash equivalents and other financial assets. These balances include the total value of council's cash and investments, including shares held in community banks. The number of standard garbage charges, $500.92, raised for the 2021-2022 financial year was 25,774. Part year and large bin service charges of differing values were also raised from the 1st of the 7th, 2021 and the 30th of the 9th, 2021.
From Kevin Griffin, notice of motion 238/21 in block coastal erosion. Notice of motion 238/21 requires that the Mayor write to the federal and state ministers urging them to commit government funding to immediate and re-nourishment works, wet sand fencing, dune revegetation and sandbags as soon as possible. What responses have been received from each of the ministers? Part 2, the wet sand fences have proved to be utterly ineffective as an erosion control measure, evidenced by the need for sandbags at the Surf Club and rock revetment at Cape Patterson Road. Is this council going to waste more money and ratepayer money by installing more of this failed technology?
Through the Mayor, council wrote to the relevant ministers following the November council meeting. To date, no responses have been received. Council will continue to employ a range of measures to manage coastal erosion based on the best available expert scientific advice. Monitoring the effectiveness of measures employed to date is ongoing and will inform future decision-making.
Claire Diffie, recycling and waste pickup tonnage. Would council please provide a list of green composting waste pickup tonnage from properties in the West Coast Shire for the period 2016 to 2021? Would council please provide a listing of recycled waste pickup tonnage from properties in the West Coast Shire for the period 2016 to 2021? They're the same.
Through the Mayor, organics curbside collection commenced on the 4th of September 2017. In the 4 years to 30th of June 2021, there's been a total of 40,069 tonnes collected. A yearly breakdown of tonnages will be provided in the minutes. The total tonnage of recycling collected through the curbside between the 1st of the 7th 2016 and the 30th of the 11th 2021 is 25,977. A yearly breakdown of tonnages will be provided in the minutes.
Stacey Dagg, Victorian Auditor General review. And the Victorian Auditor General is reviewing and approving the Council's annual report 2020 to 2021, was Vargo provided at the same time a copy of Council's fourth quarter financial report period 1/7/2020 to 30/6/2021.
Through the Mayor, the Victorian Auditor General's Officer, Vargo, does not require a copy of the Council's fourth quarterly financial report. Vargo reviews all of Council's financial and performance reports in order to provide a clear audit opinion. Council received an unqualified audit opinion, which means that Vargo believes Council is compliant with relevant reporting requirements.
Stacey Dagg, garbage waste income. Would Council please provide the garbage waste only income for the period 1/7/2021 to 30/9/2021?
Through the Mayor, waste charges raised as at the 30th of the 9th, 2021 was $14 million.
Melissa Dagg, Capital Works Projects. Would council please explain the reason 11 CWP were approved as deferred projects in the first quarter of the financial report 39/2021 when they should have been listed as projects not started?
Through the Mayor, when a project has been identified to be rephased into future years for delivery, it is reported as deferred. If, however, a project has been assessed and remains in the present year but has not yet commenced, it is reported as not started.
Straight there for a minute. Melissa Dagg, Green Waste Collection. Could council please provide the number of properties the green waste composting bin is being collected for the period 1/7/2021 to 39/2021?
Through the Mayor, the number of properties that are registered for Council's curbside collection service, including organics, are increasing all the time. On the 1st of the 7th, 2021, this figure was 28,010, and by the 30th of the 9th, 2021, it was 28,167.
Steve Collier, footpaths and in-block. Does council have a plan to install footpaths on major in-block thoroughfares such as Venus Street, Sandymount Avenue and Surf Parade to the in-block Lifesaving Club? The absence of footpaths and adequate public lighting is a major issue that with increasing traffic needs to be urgently addressed.
Through the Mayor, Council prioritises new footpath works through its footpath gaps and aspirational pathways program. The design of a footpath on Venus Street will occur in 2022, and the continuation of a shared path on Surf Parade to Ozone Street will be constructed. Public lighting is considered in the design of new pathways.
Steve Collier, envelope boat ramp. Is the council responsible for the envelope boat ramp, and is there a plan to upgrade the facility for safer and more efficient vessel launch and retrieval? With strong winds and tides, the ramp desperately needs a breakwater.
Through the Mayor, Council is the manager of the envelope boat ramp facility. Management and planning for the development of the facility is undertaken in conjunction with Better Boating Victoria and the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. Better Boating Victoria are currently leading a project to plan for an upgrade of the facility. A draft concept plan has been developed in partnership with Council. The plan includes more car parking, new jetties and a dedicated high tide only boat ramp. Community members are currently being asked to have their say on the draft concept plan, which is accessible via betterboating.vic.gov.au/consultations/envelope. Submissions close on Tuesday, the 21st of December.
Tim O'Brien, forest removal brackets, WA 513 close brackets. There has been significant removal of forest on WA 513 Barrow Group, inconsistent with the associated planning permit and no work authority in place. Does this operator have approval for this destruction of woodland habitat? Total loss of 8 to 12 acres of forest, brackets minimum, extending to the Bass River waterline. Will council and officers investigate this forest clearing and take action if this activity is unauthorised? If in breach of the planning scheme as it relates to protection of native vegetation, and if in breach of Victorian statutes relating to Crown land, streamside and riparian vegetation?
Through the Mayor, this question has been taken on notice and a response will be provided in the minutes.
Graham Jolly, quarterly financial report. Did council provide an electronic or hard copy of council's fourth quarterly financial report 36/2021 published on 20/10/2021 to the 3 external appointed auditors of council during the time they 3 auditors were reviewing and signing council's annual report 2020/2021? Would council please explain why the previous listings showing operational carryovers on 2021/22 comprising 45 projects with a funding allocation of 4,232 million is how this reads. I think that should be a full stop. Was not produced in the report of council's first quarterly financial report 39/2021.
Through the Mayor, Council's quarterly financial report for the 30th of 6th, 2021 was provided to Council's Audit Committee together with Vargo's final unqualified audit opinion on the 2020/21 financial statements. Operational carryovers to the 2021/22 financial year were provided in Council's quarterly financial report for the 30th of the 6th, 2021. As these values do not change, they are not repeated within Council's 21-2022 quarterly performance reports.
Neil Rankin, native vegetation. The Bass Coast Shire Council has a policy objective to increase native vegetation cover by 1.5% annually across the Shire. What proportion would a 5 hectares reduction in high value woodland vegetation represent of the targeted increase? The Bauer group appear to have cleared a 2,000 metre strip of native vegetation to a width averaging near 25 metres of their 115 McGrady Road Landfill property, adding up to approximately 5 hectares. Did Bass Coast Shire permit this clearing?
Through the Mayor. Council's 1.5% target equates to an increase in native vegetation cover of 180 hectares per year. A loss of 5 hectares would therefore represent a setback of 2 to 3% against this target. Officers are investigating the activity referred to in McGrady Road, Granville.
Thanks to the CEO for that. Now, petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence, there are no petitions. Notices of motion, F1, 239, Billing 21, Dalyston Recreation Reserve. Councillor Bruce Kent, would you please read out the notice of motion without speaking to it, please, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion is that council officers complete a strategic review of camping needs within the municipality and present a report to council by June 2022.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. Is there a seconder to that motion? Seconded, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. My motion's been put forward due to the Dalyston Football Club Ground Committee of Management approaching the Western Port Ward councillors with a request to run a 6-month trial of Caravan short stays in the time of probably 48 hours, 2 nights. They would like the caravans to stay there. They did this in the past, back in 2018 and prior to that. And the reason they do it is to bring funds into the ground management budget, also money for the football club who would provide meals and drinks, and also to support local community economy. They generally charge these caravan owners about $20 a night, and they're not taking customers away from the general caravan park areas. These generally are retired couples who are looking for very short stay as they travel around Australia. They wish to just stay somewhere for a very small fee. They don't want a jumping castle. They don't want a swimming pool. They just want to see the local community. So this has been going on for quite a few years now, where Bass Coast Shire is not known as a grey nomad or a short stay friendly area, and I'd like to change this attitude and improve our economy. So I've put this motion in requesting that the council officers produce a strategic review. I would like to say yes to the committee for a trial of 6 months, but we haven't got the rules that they need to abide by. So I think it's far better to get the rule book out and then let them have a go and see how they can go, but then they know the parameters that they've got to be within. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Kent's notice of motion today. We have seen quite a significant investment in caravans and camping since COVID. I think a lot of people, knowing they can't go overseas, have gone out and purchased a van or something similar to take the family out. I do think that Bass Coast lacks in this area, and I would just talk about an incident I had over the weekend, and would hope that this report will come back to consider dump sites as part of this report. Bass Coast currently has no dump sites, which caravanners and campers will know what that is, and it's a well-needed part of the whole genre of camping. So I think it's a terrific idea that we look into this. It'll be great for Bass Coast's economy, and it's an area, as I say, that I think we're really lacking. And if you look around Australia today, campers and caravanners are well accommodated for right around our country. So I just hope that Bass Coast can get up to that same level and offer the same service to caravanners and campers. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Halstead. Councillor Tesari.
Can I just seek some clarification from Councillor Kent? You're looking at charging up to $20 or $20 per caravan. Is that right? So I thought it used to be free. The parking.
So the definition of free camping within the caravan fraternity is anything from a free stay, which is normally in national parks, or farm stay, or staying on a football field. And a prime example is what they do up at the Lock Township. So in these football ovals that are run by management, they normally charge $20, $10 a couple, and it's a minimal fee. If we have free camping, then it's normally a roadside area or out in the bush somewhere. But I'm quite happy to wait for the strategic review to see whether that portion could be offered to the caravan fraternity. I've been approached by townships like Kernot, who would...
I'll interrupt you there. I think you've answered the question, and thanks very much for that. And I do appreciate the clarification there that we're asking for a review, not for approval of this proposal anyway. Councillor Tesari, do you have further? You want to speak to the resolution?
I guess I'm looking forward to the report, and I will support the motion of Councillor Kent to see a report come back. I would be concerned though if they can charge $20 or around that area, because I then would find that in direct competition with the caravan parks that have to pay massive fees to be caravan parks and have all the rules and regulations, when a football oval can just have what's known as free parking. So I look forward to the report. I will support the motion, but I'm just a little bit cautious on the cost, that's all.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tesari. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Councillor Lark.
I guess along similar lines, I note that in the officer's comments, the strategic review will also include a stakeholder engagement program. So I would want to be clear in terms of the impact, if any, on caravan parks like Big Four and Kilcunda, etc., Cape Patterson, if any. But I'll support the review. Quite happy to support a review being undertaken, but with that qualification.
Thanks, Councillor Lark. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think this is a great opportunity. It has been on the books before in that previous term of council and to be considered. I believe that there are other areas that may benefit. We talk about the tourism factor of the regional areas and the rural kind of fabric of Bass Coast, and I think this this engagement part of the strategic review would be well welcomed for those opportunities. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, Councillor King for a reply.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make it quite clear that I'm not preempting the strategic review. And as a caravan owner, my own personal feeling is that we are missing out on some caravan owners. They're just not coming to Bass Coast. These are the caravan owners that have caravans with all the solar, batteries, showers, toilets, and they are looking to an alternative to, during the peak hours time, $70 a night. They're looking for something different, and instead of heading south, they're heading north. So let's put it up for a vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. Those in favour? Carried. F2. Councillor Bauer, would you move and speak to the motion without, sorry, read the motion without speaking to it.
I got your drift, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion before it goes forward, please.
I think Councillor Bauer, just read out the motion as you have it, as it's amended.
Thank you. That in the month of December and January, residents on Phillip Island and San Remo can exchange the 120 litre red bin to a 240 litre red bin.
Just put you up there, Councillor Bauer. I think there's some confusion. You want to move an amended motion, so just read it as it would be amended.
Thank you. That in the months of December and January, residents Shire-wide can exchange a 120 litre red bin to a 240 litre red bin free of charge.
Okay. Now, before I call for a second to Councillor Bauer, you are aware that we've been advised by the CEO that this practically can't be carried out this summer?
Well, I would point out to the fact that the Shire itself.
You are aware of that?
I'm aware that I believe it can be.
All right. Seconder for the motion. Seconded Councillor Halstead. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ooh, what have I done? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting, this motion is a band-aid measure for a festering sore. This is a goodwill gesture to our ratepayers who are frustrated by councillors' intransience. It is no coincidence that yesterday the Bass Coast Shire Facebook site posted what you can do with your curbside bin if they are full. Point 2 said upsize your landfill bill, or order another recycling organic bin for an annual fee. Ratepayers, let me enlighten you. That fee is $59.20 per bin on top of your annual $500 waste levy. In the overall scheme of things, swapping the small bin for a large bin is a small hit to the Shire's bottom line. What's more, I cannot understand why the council has refunded $16,000 in collected registration fees under the existing holiday rental register as reported in the Sentinel, while council is preparing the new short-term accommodation law. These properties need and must have a 240 litre bin. Most permanent residents are more than happy with the small bin. Again, the focus is on the holiday visitors, either renting accommodation or friends of permanent residents visiting during the holidays. I would like to remind all that this motion only concentrates on the containing of the inevitable waste in the heat of summer. I support the 3-bin education initiatives, but the realities are that holidaymakers do not come to the Shire for an education lesson on waste. I quote our current mayor, the landfill bin is an issue that needs to be addressed. Not one tangible suggestion has been offered. The only course of action available is that offenders be reported to council when an overflowing stinking bin is cited. That is shutting the gate after the horse has bolted. A larger bin will at least give the appearance of a neat, tidy and attractive Shire. This motion is literally trying to keep a lid on waste. The waste model we are using is wrong. We should compare our waste model to that of a ski resort that is only 3 months long. Averaging out the visitor usage over the entire year distorts the analytical data. The Bass Coast Shire's seasonal summer spike needs greater weighting in any waste model. Another reason why I've put up this motion at 1 minute to midnight is the lack of progress with the short-term accommodation local law. This law has been held up as a panacea to resolve the waste problem by Christmas. The introduction of that law has now been pushed out to 2022. I urge all councillors to vote for this motion as an expression of goodwill towards our community. Let's put a lid on waste by upsizing the red bin. I commend the motion to the chamber for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Councillor Bauer for his motion. I seconded Councillor Bauer's motion in order for him to be heard and to be able to speak on behalf of his community. It has been a long standing issue, I understand, on the island, and I'll be supporting Councillor Bauer in this motion to try and at least make an attempt to put it, as he said, a lid on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Tassari.
I'm just chasing a couple of points of clarification, if I can, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering if Councillor Bauer can tell us how many properties have the waste collection at the moment.
The waste collection, it's about
Yeah.
27 council shower.
And is there sufficient bins if all 27,000 decide to take up the offer?
Well, why is it that the Shire's own website then state you can do it? If they didn't think they had this stock.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, fair enough.
Point of
fair
order,
enough,
Mr.
Councillor.
Mayor.
Councillor Halstead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it's not Councillor Bauer's role to find whether or not those bins are available. The thing being debated here is whether or not the community actually requires these bins. So I think how it's delivered is really something for administration to be working on, not for Councillor Bauer to have to respond to. Thank you.
Yeah, well, in terms of well, not necessarily a point of call. If you move a resolution, you should at least understand that it's able to be delivered. So, Councillor Tassari.
Yep, sorry, Councillor Halstead, I'll take that on board. I actually thought that myself, so fair point. I'll seek a point of clarification though from Ms Kennedy if I can. If 27,000 bins at $55, do we know what that cost will be to the shop?
Through the mayor, it's actually over 28,000 bins, and at $60, we've just on average rounded up to $60 per bin. That's a $1.68 million cost if we replace all those bins.
Okay.
Yes.
If I can just ask another question of Ms Kennedy, if I can, do we know where that cost will come from?
That would go onto the waste garbage charge levy because it's a cost recovery service that we provide.
Okay, thanks, Ms Kennedy. Just with all that information, this is for me I understand Councillor Bauer is very, very passionate about this, and I get that, and I love his enthusiasm. But this is I don't know the word, a motion that's been put out without I can't see how it can actually be achieved, to be honest. So it's a lot of noise. I understand what he's trying to achieve, but there's no way known the bins can be handed over in that time, and I just find it disappointing that we can't work out a solution. And I know Councillor Bauer has been trying to work with the group to try and come up with a solution, but this is another one where I just can't see it working. It's about the fourth time we've decided on these bins on different schemes, and again, I can't support Councillor Bauer, but I do love your enthusiasm and your passion.
Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mayor. As Councillor Rochelle Halstead said, this is a long-standing issue, and I've heard this come up at this time of year for the last 5 years. And the last 5 years, I would think that we've tried to come up with solutions. I understand that there's 28,000 bins being collected, but I'd love to know how many 240-litre bins are already out there anyway to take away from the equation. And it's only a guess as to how many people would take up that option of the 240-litre bins. I myself would not take it up, and I think that the council's done some fantastic education. And I think there would be this is my own view, that there would be a large portion of the community wouldn't take up that option. Because a greater majority of us do find that our red bins are only partially full each fortnight when we use the green bin. But there would be a portion of that 28,000 would take up the option, but I personally can't put a figure on that. If 28,000 took it up, it would be $1,620,000, but I cannot see we're going to be anywhere near that figure. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. Councillor Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really what the motion is asking for is something for free. That this opportunity exists already within the council. You can upsize your bin. It will cost you. For those commercial accommodation facilities, well, I think that that's a part of their business model to consider waste, as opposed to, you know, giving the whole of those 28,000 people the option. Unfortunately, I'm not able to support it. It is a user-paced service, and I think that if you need that bigger bin, you should pay for it.
Thanks. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Bauer in reply.
Thank you. Just before I close, in relation to Councillor Trizari's comment, last year the Shire received a request of 1,059 additional pickups. If you triple that to 3,500, I think that would be a realistic number of how many people would take this offer of putting a small bin out and getting a big bin. But in closing, I acknowledge to the community that this motion is not ideal. The number of visitors to Bass Coast will only increase year by year. The population seasonal spike to the Shire, and especially Phillip Island, must be taken into consideration in any waste model. The glacial progress of the development of the short-term accommodation local law is exasperating. It is the panacea we're all hoping for. I wish to reassure the community that next year I will again push for all 3 bins to be picked up every week from Christmas to February. This is the only logical and practical solution to our problem. The adoption of this motion is a band-aid measure for a festering sore. I commend the motion to go to a vote, and I am foreshadowing a division.
Those in favour?
Sorry, can I?
No, it was.
He's foreshadowed the motion.
I'm not taking the foreshadowed motion at this point in time. So sorry, just for clarity, put your hands down for the moment.
So I'm asking for division. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let's get our order sorted here. So those in favour? And I'll read out the names. Councillor Halstead, Councillor Lark, Councillor Kent and Councillor Bauer. Those against? Councillor Whelan, Councillor Laserve, Councillor Lang, Councillor Tessari. The resolution is.
I call a division.
Just 3, 2, 2.
Mr. Mayor, I call a division.
Was that time? Oh, apologies. I'm just getting a bit, I've lost the plot here. That was 4 and 4. So on the casting vote, I'll cast the vote. The motion is lost. Apologies, I misread the numbers there.
And I call a division, Mr. Mayor.
I just did a division. They're recorded, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just getting advice here. I have to call a division. Those in favour? Councillor Halstead, Councillor Lark, Councillor Kent, Councillor Bauer. Those against? Councillor Whelan, Councillor Laserve, Councillor Lang, Councillor Tessari, and with the casting vote, that motion is lost. That brings us to Act 3, 241-21, Domestic Animal Management Plan. Councillor Ron Bauer. Please move and read out the resolution without speaking to it, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council prepare a strategy consistent with the aspirations of the community expressed during the consultation of the recently adopted Domestic Animal Plan. 1. Council to immediately provide dog waste bags and dispensers at the current dog beach entrances across Bass Coast Shire. 2. Council to allow access to the off-leash dog beaches annually from the 1st of February to the 10th of December, effective from the 1st of February 2022. 3. From 1st of December to the 1st of February, dogs must be on leash on the dog off-leash areas from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. 4. Extend the leash dog or the off-leash dog access in the following areas. San Remo, A, San Remo from Foots Beach to Marine Parade, San Remo. B, the current location 350 metres from Mackenzie Road to 50 metres short of Anderson Street boat ramp in Cowes West. 5, any identified bird life nesting area sites be roped off on the off-leash areas requiring dog walkers to leash their dogs within 10 metres of such sites.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Councillor Halstead, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and observers watching this meeting. Last month, I voted in favour of the domestic animal management plan called the DAMP. In an environmentally sensitive shire like Bass Coast, a DAMP is crucial so that humans, domestic animals and wild creatures can live together in harmony. The reason I have sponsored this notice of motion is because of the inaction by council to implement strategies, especially in relation to the canine section of the DAMP in the past. There are some easy to implement strategies that have been identified in the community consultation process and in reality should already be in place. The most glaring no-brainer being the doggy poo bag dispensers are the poles that indicate the off-leash areas. This is not rocket science requiring a consultant. Nearly every other shire in Australia has these, together with very good signage. The DAMP is listed on page 24. Council will be presented with a feasibility study, including costs, benefits, impacts associated with the introduction of dog waste bins and bags for July 2022. That feasibility study suggests to me an engagement of a consultant, and that beggars belief. Surely we have the expertise in-house to make such decisions. Anybody who walks on our beaches after Australia Day knows that there's hardly a soul there. There is no reason why dogs can't be off leash in the designated areas after February the 1st. Extending the Cowes West run to 50 metres before the Anderson Street boat ramp just puts into place what everybody does anyway. It would be a dog run from ramp to ramp, from Cowes Yacht Club to just short of Anderson Street. By stopping the run 50 metres short of Anderson Street boat ramp will ensure that the roped off area for the beach nesting birds is protected. It also shows our support for the local business, the Boat Ramp Cafe. Many dog walkers use the cafe as a meeting place for a coffee, a chat, and a well-deserved rest after their arduous walk along our pristine beach. I will let Councillor Halstead talk to the merits of the foot beach to Marine Parade dog run as it's in the Western Port Ward. This omnibus motion ensures that 4 of the most pressing dog issues will not be left on the back burner, and these strategies will be in place for early 2022. As for item 5, the council officers' comments state that this measure is already in place. This part of the motion actually strengthens our existing roped off area to ensure that dogs and humans are in a safe distance from beach nesting birds. The 5 points of this motion, if adopted, will bring a positive outcome to the canine section of the DAM. I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank Councillor Bauer for his notice of motion. The points that Councillor Bauer has highlighted are just a small adjustment to our current regulations. Council has conducted significant consultation in the production of the recently adopted domestic animal management plan with overwhelming support shown for these changes. Keeping this motion in perspective, Councillor Bauer is not asking for all regulations to be turfed out. He is asking for amendments that allow our community to enjoy more outdoor time with their pets and to provide bags to encourage continued dog beach etiquette. He is asking Council to support the mental health and well-being of community members whose pets in some cases have been a lifeline. For those who live in isolation, a companion, especially through lockdowns for the last 2 years. I specifically like 4A as I walk this beach regularly and it is extremely popular for dog walkers. Extending the off-leash area to Marine Parade would allow walkers to reach town, enjoy a coffee and walk back along the beach. In preparing for this discussion, I Googled dogs and health. The list of benefits was endless. They reduce stress, anxiety, depression, ease loneliness, encourage exercise, and improve all-around health. It's no doubt that this reason contributes to dogs being more widely accepted in public places around Australia, with the majority of dog owners more aware of the etiquette required to keep such spaces open for their pets. I personally am proud of Bass Coast dog owners who I encounter when walking my dog. They are incredibly social and very aware of what is expected of them. They are mindful of bird nesting sites and vigilant in protecting any wildlife. These people are animal lovers. Council is still able to progress with a planned strategy, but could choose to make these amendments in the interim and at a time when our community is looking for freedom. I ask councillors to dig deep into your heart and support this notice of motion that will bring incredible joy to so many. Watching your best pal enjoying the beach is a low-cost expression of what it's like to be free. And boy, do we all need that right now, including our dogs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just wanted to make a comment on number one, part one of the motion. I just find it so hard that we have to put together a business case when, you know, if we really think about it, we have all hopefully experienced these dog waste bags at so many metro areas that we know that they work already. To have to put together a business plan, I just find there's a little bit of lack of common sense there and waste of council officers' time too. I support all these points in this motion, but I make a comment that any rule is only as good as the compliance and enforcement by our officers. I agree with all these points, but the council has to step in and pick up those couple of dog owners who aren't compliant and give us a bad name out there. And we know that in any industry, there is always a little bit of bad people out there. Yeah. So I ask the council officers that if this motion gets through, we have to support it and support it by compliance, enforcing the compliance and the enforcement of it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Lang.
I have a point of clarification. If someone could advise Jody, sorry, Ms. Kennedy, what is the process to developing a business case for dog bag dispensers, and would consultants be a part of that process?
So thank you through the Mayor. As detailed in the officers' comments, officers will be preparing the business case and preparing the information. The purpose of that is that, yes, they're in other municipalities and they've worked well in some and they've worked poorly in others. And what we want to do is learn from those good stories and bad stories to make sure we implement it correctly and as efficiently and as cost neutral as possible. And also in terms of making sure it doesn't add to our waste issues going forward. So this is that's what we're doing. That work's commencing in the new year, ready to be built into the budget. So we're ready to go in June 2022 to implement.
Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing.
That's it. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion?
Can I just, sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, is it possible to vote on these individually, or do we have to vote on them as a block?
We can take them individually if that's as councillors wish. Is that as councillors wish? Well, we haven't got there yet, but we'll get to that, I guess. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion first? If not, Councillor Bauer.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I and other councillors have received numerous emails of support for this motion from the community. The rule of thumb is for every email we've received, there are at least 10 people who haven't emailed. That's how important the issue of dogs off leash is to our community. This motion is born out of the frustration and inaction of the past. Items 2 to 5 don't cost a cent. Items 1 and 3 are logical and practical measures that should have been in place years ago. There are sections in the DAB where more stakeholder input is appropriate, and I support that. However, the 5 parts of this motion should be adopted and be in place by 4 February 2022. After hearing comments by other councillors, I am not adverse to splitting the motion into its parts, including point 4A and B, and governance, and ask governance to do so through you, Mr. Mayor. I commend items 1, 2, 3, 4A, 4B, and 5 to go to a vote, and I foreshadow a division. Thank you.
You don't need to foreshadow divisions, Councillor Bauer. You call them after the vote. Those in favour? Okay, so we've been asked to split those, and I think we'll do that. We'll do that. So on item 1, those in favour? Do we need to put them on the screen? There we go.
Yeah, good idea.
So that's carried.
Point of order, Mr. Councillor Whelan, Mayor Whelan. The motion was put in full, and I think it's inappropriate to split and until that full motion.
I've had advice that we're quite within our to split the resolution as requested, Councillor Lark. So, yeah, we can vote on each clause individually as is the advice I've got, and that's what I propose to do. So we'll go back, we'll just take ourselves back to clause 1 so there's no confusion. Those in favour of clause 1? That's carried. Clause 2, those in favour of clause 2? I should have said against it, but that was unanimous, the first one. So clause 2. That's okay. Those against? That's carried. Item 3, those in favour? Those against? That's carried.
4A.
Item 4A, those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Item 5.
4B.
4B, sorry, apologies. Item 4B, those in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 5. Those in favour? Against? That's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So
Can I have
it's been counted that way. So item 5, 2-5 again. 2-5 again, there's some confusion as to the vote. Those in favour of item 5? Those against? Okay, that's tied, and it's therefore lost on the casting votes. All right.
I ask a division, Mr. Mayor.
We need-
You would have to do a division on each of the points.
Do you want a division on each of these points, Councillor Bauer?
No, I think if the first 4 have been carried, I think just on item 5 will do.
Division, those in favour of item 5? Of Councillor Halstead, Councillor Lark, Councillor Kent, Councillor Bauer. Those against? Councillor Whelan, Councillor Serve, Councillor Lang, Councillor Tassari, and the resolution was lost on the casting vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That brings us to item F4, 24221, Kilcunda Community Association, Inc. Councillor, I invite Councillor Halstead to move and read the resolution without speaking to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council receive a report at February 2022 Council meeting on options for granting the Kilcunda Community Association a long-term lease of the Kilcunda Community Centre, and 2, that the report considers a lease for a period of 10 years with options for 2 5-year extensions up to a maximum period of 20 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. The seconder for that motion, Councillor Kent. Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Kilcunda community have a long history of hard work and commitment to the improvement of their piece of paradise by the sea. Over a period of approximately 13 years, They've raised funds through the Kilcunda Community Association, formerly known as the Kilcunda Community Development Association. As founders of the Lobster Festival, funds raised have ensured the Hall facility is well equipped, well positioned and well used by the community, emergency services and the wider community of Bass Coast. In 1994, $120,000 of funds raised by the association were put towards a $150,000 project to deliver the new hall, with council contributing the small amount of $30,000. This is an achievement the local community should be so proud of, and that council should congratulate and support. The association has continued over 27 years to maintain and improve the facility and all the grounds surrounding it at their own expense. I support the association in their bid to secure a lease of 10 years with a 5x5 option, and hope that the report returning to council in February provides this recommendation. It is not unreasonable for the people of Kilcunda to request of council some security of tenure before continuing to spend locally raised funds for the benefit of the whole community, and I hope council recognises this. This facility belongs to the people of Kilcunda. It is through their vision, through their commitment and through their blood, sweat and tears that this facility even exists. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support this motion because this association is unique in Bass Coast. Like all of these community associations, they are all passionate about what they do. But where this association differs is that they put in substantial money into that asset that they're running. We have very long-term tenders for places like caravan parks and yacht clubs, etc. And we have the normal 5-year lease period for normal community centres. But this association sort of stands in the middle of both. And that's why I consider it to be different, and it should be considered, and I look forward to the report from the council officers.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. And Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with the notice of motion and that report come back in February. This is, as the other ward councillors have said, a great example of a community association working hard for their community. They've raised the funds to put infrastructure in their community. So this is really a great asset. So I support the recommendation. I congratulate the committee for being steadfast on their views about this, and they came to their ward councillors, and I just hope that we can, by February, have some kind of certainty for them in their moving forward with their lease. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lasserve. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Halstead, do you have wish to reply, or happy to put it to a vote?
Happy to put to a vote. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to Mayor and Councillor reports, and I advise that my report will be recorded in the minutes, and I invite councillors to, in the interest of time, to also have theirs recorded in the minutes. Are we happy to do that? If so, they'll appear in the minutes of this meeting. So this gets us to reports requiring a council decision. And I'll just read this for both the benefit of councillors, but also anyone who's following us virtually from home. Councillors and community members, the numbering of the reports requiring a decision has changed following the inclusion of 2 reports that were circulated later. So the reports that are currently on the web page are the accurate ones. And the reason for the additional reports being put in is they're in the original draft of the agenda that were subject to external reports that we weren't 100% sure would come. We've since received those reports so they can be dealt with and expedite those projects without the delay over Christmas. That brings us to H.1 Planning Application 1922-785 Thompson Avenue Cowes Development. I call on Council, I've just made you a councillor, Mr. Sturt, to introduce that report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bestowing that upon me. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 190227, which seeks to develop the land for a mixed-use 5-storey building and the reduction in car parking for the purposes of dwellings, a residential hotel, retail, food and drink premises at 85 Thompson Avenue Cowes. The application was advertised and received 23 objections. The application has been considered and assessed against the Bass Coast planning scheme. It is recommended that council resolve to refuse to grant a permit on this occasion based on the proposal not adequately responding to its surrounds, its excessive height and reliance upon surrounding activity centre car parking with a significant proposed reduction in car parking spaces. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturt. And you have a mover for that motion. Moved, Councillor Lasserve, seconded. Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, 23 objections to this application, and it really is overdevelopment. We're talking about 5 stories here, and considering the overshadowing problems. The only merit in this type of application that I see that it's possibly in the right place in the CBD of Cowes, but and we need accommodation to keep our domestic and international visitors when they come back, accommodation overnight, that type of thing. But really, at the immense development of this building is just a bit over the overdevelopment for my liking. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Tassari.
I agree with the last little comment from Councillor Lasserve there, Mr. Mayor, that it's overdeveloped. It's actually not a bad looking project. It's just way too high and big. So I can't support it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tassari. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. The only other point I wanted to pick up on was that the transit centre car park is at the rear of this building, and I think they're looking for 21 car parking spots that they don't have to supply. I mean, that transit car park was designed to look after the whole of Cowes and the undersupply of car parking spaces, and here we have a group who just wants to utilise it for their own, and which means that the general public would miss out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Lasserve, do you wish to reply?
I think all points have been covered, Mr. Mayor. I put it to the vote.
Thanks, Councillor Lasserve. Those in favour of the motion? That's carried. Which brings us to H.2 Planning Application 210196 1517 1529 Bass Highway Grantville, use and development of land for a service station, convenience restaurant and retail premises, and subdivision of the land into 7 lots in the MUZ and DPO3, removal of native vegetation under clause 52.17, erection of signage and altering access to an RD.
You'll look up in a minute.
Yes. What am I supposed to know? Just read out there. I call on Mr. Sturton to clarify that.
Councillor Halstead.
As I said, some mothers do happen. We started off by knocking a glass of water over. So I mean, there you go. Mr. Sturton, I'll call to councillor again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210196, which seeks to subdivide the land into 7 lots and develop the land for the purposes of a service station, convenience restaurant, 5 retail premises, associated signage, altering access to a road zone category 1, and the removal of vegetation. The application is before council due to the cost of development. No notification was required as the site is subject to an approved development plan, which council presided upon in June 2021. However, this application has also been referred to the relevant authorities. The application has been considered and assessed against the Bass Coast planning scheme. It is recommended the council resolve to grant a planning permit as per the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Halstead, seconded. Councillor Lasserve. Where you laughing?
Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I was actually doing a little dance while you were reading that one out, because this has been a long time awaited, this one. I just want to make it clear to any Grantville residents or Waterline residents that are watching, this one is not the supermarket. It's on the corner on the corner site. However, I am sure it is going to be widely welcomed by the community. They have been waiting a very long time. They've been very vocal, and this has to have been the most scrutinised planning application that Bass Coast Council, or one of the most scrutinised that Bass Coast Council has ever seen. The planning department has been incredibly thorough. They have ticked every possible box that they could tick, and it is just such a relief to see this one come to council. So it won't be long now, hopefully, and we'll see some turning of the sod and finally some more business for the Grantville community. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be definitely supporting this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lasserre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's like the fastest finger first on this one for ward councillors, because it's been, as Councillor Halstead said, it's been a long time coming. And sure, the clarity around it, we needed to get that right. And I thank the planning department for their support and assistance on it. We want good outcomes. Granville is our northern centre. It's a growing district. It's got new subdivisions coming, and it certainly is expanding. So all these amenities and services come with that kind of growth, and it will be an employer. It'll certainly help with employment up that end. So I think that by the looks of the plans, it's done. They've done a very nice job with it, and I'll be supporting the application.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserre. Any other councillor wish to? Oh, I should have known that. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so that you know, when you were reading everything and looking away, I think we probably need a starter's gate here, because Councillor Halstead, I think, was trying to beat the gate.
I'd like to remind you that's the first one that the Mayor sees, not the first one with a hand up.
I was thinking about sneaking one in. Look, I fully support this. The only thing I note is that this property is currently up for sale or lease. I just hope that the project has moved along for the sake of the Grantville community very fast, and that it's just not sat on waiting for the sale. That I think it's going to be a great site, and we just need to keep the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Halstead, you wish to reply, or shall we put it to a vote?
No, let's put this one to bed, Mr. Mayor.
Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to H.3 Planning Application C.1 Bruce Road, Silverleaves. Mr. Sturton to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210252, which seeks to develop the land for a double-storey dwelling within the land subject to inundation overlay and the removal of vegetation to install an associated septic tank system and effluent disposal area. The application is advertised and it received 5 objections. The application has been considered and assessed against the Bass Coast planning scheme. It is recommended the council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit as per the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Lasserre as seconder. Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasserre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this one I find is a tough one, because the area is zoned as a township zone, general residential type one, and it's come before us because it's got that land subject to inundation overlay on it. So I think that it's very important that we do look at these kind of applications, and the officers have scrutinised it, put their conditions in place, and brought it to council because of the 5 objections. I was initially I was a bit surprised that all of that Silver Leads area was septic tank and not sewage as yet, but it's fairly well developed community anyway. So I do hate the thought of having trees removed, but that's just unfortunately what's going to happen to get a septic tank in. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Sir, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we need a couple more Island ward councillors. Yes, look, I've heard the words of Councillor Lasserve, agree with them 100%. In layman's terms, septic tank cannot be placed under trees, so we have to have some small vegetation removed. There's some really bad examples in Silverleaves at the moment where people have gone completely overboard. But in this case, it is quite clear that the large diameter vegetation trees on the nature strip are not being touched whatsoever. It is smaller trees in the background that have to be removed for the septic, and it's part of the living. And I can't find anything wrong with this application whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor? Councillor Halstead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Lasserve and Councillor Kent's comments in relation to removal of vegetation. None of us like to see that happen anywhere in the Shire, but I will just like to bring attention to the fact that council officers have addressed that by, requiring the applicant to provide a revegetation landscape plan. There is vegetation that's required to be planted in replacement of the loss, and it's terrific to see those conditions in there. So on those grounds, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Any other councillor Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll bring up the little caboose here as the only Island Ward councillor left to be able to speak to this. When we had the Island Ward briefing, I did question the officers on this, and they were reassuring that this one can go ahead. And under those advisements, I'm prepared to vote for it. And I just hope they do what the permits request. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak on the motion? If not, Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think all points have been covered. Put it to a vote. Thank you.
Okay, those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to H.4 Planning Application 210286 2 Langard Road, Cowes. So full on.
Mr. Mayor, I wish to move a alternate for that.
Okay, well, you'll foreshadow that. I'll allow Mr. Sturton. Shall we allow the report? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210286, which seeks to develop the land for a replacement double-storey dwelling in the general residential zone, and that exceeds the 7-metre permit trigger of the Design and Development Overlay 1. This application was advertised and received 18 objections. The application has been considered and assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme. It is recommended the Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit as per the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. You have a councillor move that motion, and I think Councillor Bauer, you indicated you had an alternative.
Yes, I do. I think
before you, do we have that here? Can we put that on the screen? Just so. Councillor Bauer, do you want to? We won't need to read. I've got it on the screen there, but that's the motion you want to move.
Yes, it's not to grant this a permit. Yes.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kent. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors and observers in the gallery, you can never vote against questionable decisions by property owners. If people want to knock down a perfectly good modern home to build an even bigger one, We may say they have more money to spend than sense, but that's their decision. However, we are the representatives of our community. I've received many calls and emails about this development. There's also been 18 objections lodged with council about this application. I've been to the property in question and spoken to a couple of the neighbours and heard their concerns. I've been told by the objectors that some of the assertions made by the applicants may be misleading. I'm also aware that if this alternate motion is successful, this application will end up in VCAT. But with the recent VCAT ruling in relation to Sharmadine Court Cowes Development, I'm encouraged that this may be an appropriate course of action. In the VCAT ruling, the member stated that the development loomed large from the foreshore. At times, we as our community representatives have to listen to the community and take a stand for the greater good. Apart from the height restriction that triggered this application to come to the chamber, one has to ask, is the overall size of this development appropriate for the neighbourhood? It comes down to livability of the area. As stated by the objectors, the neighbourhood character, the impact of the views, and the protection of the landscape of the coastal area. I commend this motion to the chamber for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. After that, Councillor Bauer covered all my points, so I'll let it rest. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Kent. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Lang.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I will not be supporting the alternative resolution because I trust there's been extensive work that's been undertaken by the planners in this process. And furthermore, that the design response has also got architectural benefits to the current application. I also think it's a little bit disappointing that we're casting aspersions on applicants in their planning applications when putting forward arguments for or against this motion. So I would like, assessed it on its merits, and I will not be supporting the alternative resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lark.
It's frozen.
Thank you, Mayor Whelan. I too inspected the site and the property and the existing property and what was proposed. I'm very supportive of the design that's been put before us, and also I agree with the planners' observations that there's no real impact on the foreshore, the view either to the foreshore or from the foreshore. And moreover, in fact, in front of the existing vegetation and foreshore trees and so forth are hundreds of plantings that will grow up in due course to that will further enhance the area from a foreshore perspective. Virtually, you won't see the house from the foreshore or from the coast. I don't think it impacts views in the street itself, either to the foreshore or, as I said, from. And because of the excellent design that's been put before us and the protection of the vegetation along the foreshore currently existing and what will grow, I won't be supporting this alternative motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Is there any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? If not, Councillor Bauer, in reply.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification from governance. If the alternate falls, does the original motion come back up?
It does.
We need to make it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, I have nothing to add to the motion. I think I've said all this. I commend the motion to a vote.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bauer. Those in favour? Against? It's carried. Sorry, I mean it's lost. Which brings us to the original motion. Can I have someone move that original motion? Councillor Lang, and seconded Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lang.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I think that the design response, albeit slightly higher than the trigger, well not slightly, but it is higher than the trigger, is an appropriate design response for that property. There's sufficient setbacks as well, and yes, it is a very big house, but it is very architecturally designed, and it I think there's been significant collaboration to ensure that it responds to the requirements in that space.
Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add. I think Councillor Lang has said everything that I sort of agree with, so I'll let it go out to the rest of the council. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other councillor wishes to speak to this? If not, Councillor Lang, do you wish to say anything further, or should we put it to a vote? To a vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Which brings us to H6, Anderson. No, it doesn't. Which brings us to H5, Planning Scheme Amendment C.1 2295 Block 130 Road, Ryanston. I call on Mr. Sturton to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider adopting Planning Scheme Amendment C.1 to rezone the land from public use zone to farming zone. Ordinarily, a public use zone parcel of land would be assigned to a school, a public hall, or for public utilities. 2295 Block 130 Road, Ryanston is in private ownership, contains no easements or any other evidence to suggest the presence of public assets on site. As such, this single lot is an anomaly in the planning scheme, which C.1 seeks to amend. Amendment C.1 has been publicly exhibited and is now recommended that Council resolve to submit the amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. To have a councillor move this motion, Councillor Kent, seconded, Councillor Dasari. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We'll make this a quick one. It's already come before us back in September. It's just changing it from public use zone to farming zone. It's something that existed that we don't know why, and we're just using some common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Dasari, nothing to say. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Kent will put that to the vote.
Thank you.
Okay. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. That brings us to H6 now. They're a bit prematurely before. Anderson Street Reserve Master Plan, and I ask Ms Kennedy to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the Anderson Street Reserve Master Plan 2021. The Anderson Street Reserve Master Plan has been developed in line with the priorities within the Active Bass Coast 2018 and the Bass Coast Place-Based Strategy 2017. Council officers commenced community consultation in June this year, asking the San Remo community for their thoughts on the future aspirations of the Anderson Street Reserve. This consultation informed the development of a draft master plan that was placed on public display from the 20th of September to the 10th of October 2021. The master plan has been developed in line with the local level facility and will provide an improved public amenity for passive and active users to enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have a councillor move that? Councillor Halstead. Seconder. Councillor Lang, just pick on the draw there. Okay, Councillor Halstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am happy to see this recommendation come to council for a master plan of this reserve. It's been sitting as just a grassed area with a few sort of lonely small trees, aside from the ones that are around the boundary, which are the really tall pines. and the community have been really keen to see, well, specifically a senior type park, which I've never heard of actually in my time as on this council or in my time on any previous council. And I'm really happy that the council officers have put together what is identified as a bit of a seniors park, which will have senior friendly gym equipment and walking tracks. And of course it will accommodate to the little ones as well, but it's just lovely to see that we're adopting a park space for those older members of our community. And that's one that the community in that area were really keen to be involved in and keen to see. So it's very exciting for them, and I'm really pleased that we're at master plan stage, and hope that, you know, we can move it along maybe through budget, councillors, but that's for another discussion. So very happy to move this recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Halstead put it really well. I just wanted to add, I look forward to using the seniors equipment myself.
Not for long.
Get in line, I think. Any other councillor wish to speak to that motion? If not, back to Councillor Halstead. Do you wish to say anything further or put it to a vote? Right.
No, I've said enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to vote.
Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. H7, Arts and Culture Advisory Committee membership. I call on Mr. Box to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to endorse representatives for the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for the next term 2021-23. Council established the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee in 2018 to assist us in responding to community needs and future aspirations for arts and culture. Following an expression of interest process calling for suitably qualified community representatives, Council is recommending 2 new members to fill these vacancies. To ensure a consistent First Nations representation is also proposed to appoint Council's Aboriginal Development Officer to the committee. It's recommended that Council endorse the new Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for 2021-23 as outlined in this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Can I have a councillor to move that motion? Councillor Halstead, and seconded Councillor Lasser. Councillor Halstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As chair of this committee, I'm really happy to welcome the new members in Miranda Sage, who's with ASPI, Sandra Peters, who's with Pisces, and Patricia Mahoney, who's our officer from council. I think they're going to bring some fantastic insights to the broader committee, and I think the committee is excited to see them coming on board. While we're talking about committee, if I can just briefly digress to the officer who sits with me as chair, David Burrows, who doesn't get his name mentioned very often, but council's very lucky to have him involved in this committee. He's very good at what he does, and recently received a really lovely letter from his involvement in the Robert Smith collection and exhibition recently. So I just want to congratulate him while we're talking about the committee and thank him for all the hard work that he does. Getting back on track though, yes, this is a fabulous recommendation, and of course I will be wholeheartedly supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really just to say congratulations to those return members as well. They've really held the committee in good stead, and welcome our new members to this committee. It's a great committee. It comes together really on a skills basis. They've got a lot to contribute, and we should be excited about it because they're a great asset to Bass Coast. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Halstead, shall we put that?
Just quickly, it was remiss of me not to say that the whole committee is wonderful. We are extremely blessed to have these people in this area, and I'm really excited about what we as a committee will be able to achieve moving forward. The art space is looking very exciting for the future. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all those committee members. Can't wait to see you. I think it's this Thursday is our next meeting. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Those in favour? That's carried, which brings us to eight, complaint handling policy, and ask Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update Council's complaint handling policy as required by the new Local Government Act 2020. The recommended policy meets the requirements of the Act and aligns with the Victorian Ombudsman's Councils and Complaints Good Practice Guide. The changes include a new 4-tier system, which is recommended as best practice. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Can I have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Lang. Seconded, Councillor Tesari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This complaint handling policy is a refresh of what we've had previously. It does follow best practice guidelines as well as aligning with the requirements of the Local Government Act. And there have been also no major updates required to the policy until the recent adoption of the Local Government Act. So in that sense, it's a refresh, and I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Tesari.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Lang. It aligns with the Local Government Act, and I'm more than happy to support this recommendation.
Okay, is there any other councillor wishes to speak on this motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've looked at this thing, and it's well recorded that when we had the unconscionable behaviour policy brought in, I was concerned about civil liberties, etc., etc. I've had briefing from the officers on this, and I'm very happy with the way this is being brought in. It's transparent and gives the complainant greater scope for upper levelling from the resolution officer to manage a resolution, internal review and external review. I think this is a well-crafted document, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. In my view, this policy should have been prepared much earlier and sent out for public consultation. This is not, in my opinion, an example of deliberative engagement.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Lark. You still there?
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So you finished a bit abrupt there. Yeah, very short and sweet. Thank you for that. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not,
can I just have a point of clarification, Councillor Whelan, on what Councillor Lark is referring to in relation to deliberative engagement? Did we not consult over this particular policy?
That's where I was coming from.
shall I ask councillor, promoting them all or demoting whatever they think? Mr. Mack.
Through the Mayor, there's an existing policy in place, and we've updated that policy to meet the requirements of the Local Government Act and also in accordance with the Ombudsman's Good Practice Guide. In terms of the community engagement spectrum, it will be inform only, and we will inform the community of this new policy if adopted.
And the Local Government Act is quite prescriptive on what it needs to be applied to. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, if I can just get a point of clarification, when I actually initiated the discussion with the officers when this came up. So I don't know if the rest of them got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lang, do you wish to speak to it or put the resolution?
Can I just ask, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, because before I vote on this, I want to get it clear through you to Mr. Mack in relation to the changes that have been made in this policy. Is it to keep in line with the Government's Act? So the local government is telling us what we should have in our complaint policy. The state government is telling us what we should have in our complaint policy.
Through the Mayor, so the new Local Government Act is a principles-based act, and it says that we need to update or adopt a complaints handling policy by the end of 2021, and we've updated our policy to align with the requirements of the Act as well, and we've used the Ombudsman Good Practice Guide as a key reference in the update of that policy.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack.
No worries. Are you wishing to speak to it, Mr. Councillor Kent? Yeah, you're a bit late, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, it's just adding to Councillor Lark's comment. I fully understand from the council officers that there's a minimum content that we must comply with, but there's nothing stopping us going to the community with any information that we're going to put out there to see if they want extra stuff on top of the minimum that's required by legislation.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lang in reply, or shall we put it to a vote?
Put it to a vote.
Okay. With those in favour? Against? It's carried. Just to H9, Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy, and we'll pause while the Chief Executive Officer leaves the room. I call on Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report presents a draft CEO Employment and Remuneration Policy and revised CEO Employment Matters Committed Charter to Council for adoption, and seeks to establish and appoint a CEO Employment Matters Committee under the Local Government Act 2020. The CEO Employment and Remuneration Policy includes provision for independent professional advice in relation to the matters dealt with in the policy, and it is recommended that Council establish an advisory committee with an independent chair to oversee matters relating to CEO employment and remuneration. This report also recommends that Council extend the current independent chair, Mr. Tim Large, for a further one-year term to 18 March 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I call on Councillor to move that motion. Councillor Tassari, you seconded. Councillor Lasser. Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm more than happy to move this motion. The subcommittee or the committee does a fantastic job and scrutinises the CEO and all he does. There's probably a couple of things that Councillor Lasser has implemented which will only strengthen this committee. So I'm looking forward to being part of this moving forward. So I'm happy to recommend put the recommendation forward.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to say that it's important that we have this policy in place, and that we do have an Employment Matters Committee under the Local Government Act. It's a requirement that we do that, but that we have an independent chair in Tim Large. He's well skilled in this and versed in this type of role, and I look forward to, as we have before, having input from councillors. All councillors get the opportunity to have input at some stage. So when that comes up, please be advised to do so. And I put the recommendation. Well, I'm happy to support the.
I already put it, Councillor.
Councillor Lasser, thank you. And any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? You nearly bought a house there, Councillor Halstead. There being no other, Councillor Sorry, shall we put the report? Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to H10.
Do we need to get the CEO back in the room?
Oh yes, Mr. C. Well, we'll just pause while the CEO returns.
Well down, you mate.
Okay, H10 Council Meeting Schedule 2022, and I call on Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend the council meeting schedule for 2022. Council meetings are scheduled for the third Wednesday of each month, excluding January. Wonthaggi Civic Centre Chamber is the recommended location and will be fitted with technology to accommodate live streaming, which will remain normal practice for all council meetings. Please note the updated recommendation to permit virtual attendance by councillors for the February, March and April meetings. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Have a councillor move the motion. Councillor Lang, seconded. Councillor Lasser. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm looking forward to meeting in person with all councillors in the chamber and ideally having a live audience in the, audience gallery. Thank you. It's good to be in the wheelhouse today and actually have people whispering words of advice as well. So that'll be really good for all councillors to enjoy. It's been a tough couple of years for everybody, and I think that some semblance of normality would be great for us. And I look forward to that time.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I agree that I think we operate, it's been very difficult for everybody to have interaction with Zoom meeting type meetings online. There's something that's lacking in it. So I think that, you know, getting back into the chamber will be a good thing, providing it's a kind of a system that we can certainly adapt to all aspects with the live streaming. Now, a question was posed before regarding why don't we rotate it like we used to? But that being said, some of the local halls haven't got the capacity to have the live streaming. So that over the years, we have rotated it from Wonthaggi, Inverloch, Coronet Bay, we went to Cowes, you know, so we tried that model and it really didn't fit. It didn't fit for the technology's sake and you can see how difficult it is online just with the internet connections through us all being in different locations and that. So I think that being back in the chamber will give us, you know, a really good way to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Lark.
My view is that an efficient and effective hybrid model should be developed so that councillors and the community alike have the option to attend virtually or physically. In saying so, that's more in keeping with our commitment to access and inclusion and for all people, and to do otherwise is, in my view, not genuinely meeting the needs of our community. I won't hold up a vote for this particular motion, but I think we have to develop ways and means of engaging with all people, not just councillors in the chamber itself, but people with a disability and right across the spectrum of our community, people that are working that maybe want to break at lunch and watch our council meeting, etc. So the solution needs to be found, I would suggest March, April next year at a minimum.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bauer, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Councillor Lark has just stolen my thunder there because that's exactly what I wanted to say. But I accept that the limitations of the technology may be a problem, and I will support the schedule as it is at the moment, and we can visit that next year sometime. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Lang, if you want to speak further, shall we put it to a vote?
Briefly, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add there are significant benefits to live streaming. I think we've had huge audience numbers, blockbuster hits here at council. Nothing more than watching some fantastic YouTube council meetings when I'm having my lunch. I'm being flipped, obviously, but I think that in principle, I'm supportive of further access and inclusion, and hopefully the technology can keep up with us in leaps and bounds moving forward. But the initial premise of what we're proposing in this motion is solid. Put it to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Those in favour? That's carried. H, that brings us to H11, reappointment of Board and Risk Committee independent member. I ask Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek formal council approval to reappoint Mr. Tim Large as an independent member of the Audit and Risk Committee for a further 2 years. Mr. Large is a highly experienced member of the committee and has recently expressed his desire to take up the final 2-year extension available under the committee charter. It is recommended that council reappoint Mr. Large for a further 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Councillor to move that. Councillor Tassari seconded. Councillor Lasserve. Councillor Tassari.
Tim is an amazingly knowledgeable person, and I think having him on our Audit and Risk Committee is a massive advantage to the Bass Coast Shire Council. He's well regarded across the sector in a lot of different roles that he's been in, and I'm more than happy to move that continue that relationship that we have. Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some people may not know that we've got an independent audit committee of 3 members, that it's not just, you know, the officers and councillors, it's skills-based positions, and I think it's something that we do really well, and we've certainly got some great skills within our audit committee, so I'm happy to go with the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lasserve. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Mr. Councillor, oh, hang on, sorry, Councillor Lark.
Yes, I certainly support Mr. Large's appointment, but from an overall perspective, I think that the Audit Committee Charter and the program needs review, and members need to be held more accountable for evaluation of Council's financial performance and viability. And that goes across a whole range of funding.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Order, Mr. Councillor Lark. Councillor Tassari, and point of order.
The discussion is to whether to reappoint Mr. Large, not on the review practices of the finances.
I think that's appropriate, Councillor Lark. Would you stick to the subject of the report, please?
As long as you rule that.
I have ruled that I think that you need to stick to the subject matter. You're on mute.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Any other councillor wish to speak to it? If not, Councillor Tassari, shall we put the report?
Happy to put it to a vote.
Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to H12, appointment to council committees and external committees. I ask Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council appoints the Mayor and councillors to council committees and external committees to meet its legislative obligations and to enhance its involvement in community activities and to advocate on behalf of the community. This report recommends council appoint Councillor Rooks as the councillor delegate to the Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Can I have a councillor move that? Councillor Tassari seconded. Councillor Lasserve.
More than happy to speak, am I? Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Okay. More than happy to move that Councillor Rooks takes on this role. He's doing an amazing amount of work, and once again, he's stepped up to a vacant position. So Councillor Rooks is doing an incredible job, and happy to put this recommendation forward.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasserve.
I might say also, Mr. Mayor, that it's just because he's not here, he doesn't get that appointment. Sometimes on committees, if you don't get the job of the secretary. So Councillor Rooks has agreed to take in this position with such enthusiasm. He has got a lot on his plate. So it's just because he's not here isn't a fact that he's not in agreement. he certainly did agree to put his name forward. So happy to support.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor the third. And I agree, he's not here for a very good reason, but we did load it on. Any other Councillor Lang?
I'm sure he's watching it at home live stream.
Was that your contribution? Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to this? If not, Councillor Tassari, shall we put the report?
Must be getting close to the end of the meeting. Mr. Mayor, it's starting to get ready, but happy to put it to the vote.
Those in favour? That's carried. Brings us to page 13, West Coast Shire Council Procurement Policy, and ask Mr. Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider and adopt an updated procurement policy. The Local Government Act 2020 requires Council to adopt an updated policy by 31 December 2021. Council's procurement policy review has been informed by sections 108 and 109 of the Local Government Act, as well as local government best practice procurement guidelines. Benchmarking information from the regional procurement network and a number of metropolitan councils has also informed this review. This review and benchmarking has informed revised tendering, quotation and delegation thresholds, collaborative procurement requirements, and local, social and environmental procurement considerations. Developing effective procurement processes that balance value for money and efficient delivery of goods, works and services for the Bass Coast community. Consultation with Council's Audit Risk Committee was completed in November 2021. The revised procurement policy is recommended to Council for adoption. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Councillor, move that. Councillor Lang, seconded. Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The new Local Government Act has removed the tendering thresholds to provide councils with more opportunities to streamline their tendering and procurement process using best practice guidelines. And this policy isn't just about achieving the cheapest price. The quadruple bottom line principles will continue to apply as in the previous procurement policy, evaluating tenders for environmental, social benefit and local economy. Councils are required where possible to get a quote and also where possible give preference to local contractors, products and suppliers. Probity is about ensuring the integrity of the procurement process. So it's about guarding against collusion, fraud and anti-competitive conduct and not receiving personal gain. The new Local Government Act encourages and makes it easier for council to collaborate with other councils and ensure efficient and economical advantage from working with other councils to achieve better results. I'd say that a contribution of delays in delivering projects has in the past been attributed to the often cumbersome nature of thresholds requiring decisions to go before council. So this new policy, from what we have been briefed on considerably and had significant opportunity to look through, aims to appropriately risk manage and protect the integrity of the procurement process, as well as more flexibility within the new rules in the new Local Government Act. So I would commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Tassari.
Not much more I can add to that, Mr. Mayor. Very well researched and happy to support the recommendation.
Is there any other councillor wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. My view is that this recommendation does not have the balance right between council and the administration. In other words, not enough oversight by council and transparency for our community vis-a-vis administrative decision-making freedom. That's my view. And I think the levels of delegation are out of kilter with the balance between council and the administration and should be reined in significantly.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on from what the Councillor Lark just said, I'd like to read whilst the level of the authority approved to the CO is unaltered at $1 million, provision has been made for the CO to approve a budget variations that can be accommodated within the $1 million approval rate that they don't exceed the lesser of 20% or $100,000. I think $1 million is a lot of money that we as councillors don't see and can be approved on unilaterally. And I would like to see that this be addressed when this sometime next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Lane, do you wish to? Oh, hang on, Councillor Halstead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too have concerns about the level of delegation as far as the finances are concerned. I do think council needs to have a look at it and possibly reduce some of those delegations, but I'm happy to take that offline and talk to councillors, you know, to try to come to an arrangement.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, is it all right if we have to?
Is this a clarification?
Yeah. Are we allowed to defer this one?
I didn't hear you. What?
Can we defer this report?
No, you've already spoken, Councillor Bauer. You don't get a second bite at the cherry.
There was a clarification.
Yeah, yeah, well, that is a clear. So no, it could have been deferred, but you can't speak twice. So anyone else wish to speak on?
Point of order.
Point of order.
You can't apply for a motion to defer if you've already spoken.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Councillor Kemp, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask that question. Can it be deferred?
You can move the deferral. I just seek clarification from Mr. Mack.
Through the Mayor, there's a requirement for this policy to be adopted by the 31st of December 2021 under the Local Government Act.
And this is bringing it into compliance with the new Local Government Act, as I understand it, Mr. Mack.
Yes.
Thank you. And sorry, just a clarification, Mayor, that the ramifications of not succeeding that outcome?
We'll be non-compliant with the Act through the Mayor.
So that brings, unless you're speaking to the
Can
motion.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask?
Sorry, Councillor Halstead, you've already spoken, as I understand it. So
I don't wish to speak, Mr. Mayor. On a point of order, I wish to ask a question.
Well, I'm in the middle of addressing Councillor Kent, if you don't mind, Councillor Halstead, and I'm asking if you actually wanted to speak to the motion.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Halstead.
It's just in relation to Councillor Kent's question. He asked about what the ramifications of not meeting that deadline are, and I understand the answer that Mr. Mack has given, but is that what is the outcome of that particular ramification? I mean,
goes where I'm going.
Council could extend, could they? Could they extend, like if you're not in by the 31st of December, are they going to lock us up for 20 years?
I'm not sure that this is pertinent to the debate, Councillor Halstead. Really,
I'm not asking to debate it. I'm asking a question.
Well,
I'm asking a question for clarification on what Councillor
it's been
Kent
clarified
asked.
that we're not being in compliance with the legislation. So
And if we are not, and if, yes, Mr. Mayor, if we are not compliant and we don't make that deadline, it says we're not compliant. What is the outcome of that? What happens to council if we don't make the deadline?
We're not in compliance with the legislation means we're not doing our job, Councillor Halstead. Essentially, we're required to comply with legislation. Seriously, you're suggesting we should put ourselves out of compliance with the legislation?
No, I'm not suggesting that we do, but I'm asking the question of what that actually means.
Well, you've had your answer, Councillor Halstead. Now I'm moving on to close the debate through Councillor. Councillor, sir, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
Go.
Should point one be added to the recommendation that it comes back to council in February or March to reassess the requirements under the delegation?
Are you looking to move that as an amendment?
An amendment. I just think that we will meet our obligation under.
You're not qualified to move to second an amendment at this point in time. Everyone's spoken. I'll just seek clarification from the CEO.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, if we can address the recommendation that is in this report and have a further briefing if the issue is in regards to the Chief Executive Officer's level of delegation, which is currently at $1 million, we can do a review of that and have a discussion, and then a further report be brought back at a council meeting. But if we can address the recommendation in this report so we can maintain our compliance with the Local Government Act.
So I'll call on Councillor Lang to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Lang.
Sorry, Councillor Halstead, unless you're moving a point of order, you're not entitled to speak.
Well, I will move a point of order. I will move a point of order, Mr Mayor. If we adopt the recommendation as it stands.
No, that's a question. If it's not a point of order, I'm not accepting it.
But Councillor Whelan, the CEO has just said if we adopt the recommendation as it stands and we can address it later, that means we're adopting the policy with those amendments that we actually would have preferred to change.
I'm seeking advice here. Just keep your hand down, Councillor Lang. We'll just seek advice.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The CEO has asked for council to vote on the matter. Pending the outcome of the vote, there would be a further report back to council in February.
Why?
That's what the CEO has offered.
You've offered a report.
Good discussion at council briefings.
There'll be further briefings on it. We can discuss it further, but at this point in time, you are being asked to vote on the motion that is there and that stands in the report. Councillor Lang.
Point of order. I thought Councillor Lasserve moved an amendment. I think that amendment should be dealt with firstly.
I've already ruled that there's no one competent to second that amendment. You've all spoken.
I'm happy to second it.
Motion of dissent.
You can't second it. You've already spoken.
I move a motion of dissent to
Hang
the
on,
chair.
I need to seek some advice here.
I believe you can second. I believe you can second the motion even if you've spoken to the matter. Let me check. Take it
Yes,
forward.
adjourn the meeting.
So adjourn the meeting.
I'll adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes while we seek clarification on that point. That's what Collins knows.
Just wait.
Thank you and welcome back to the council meeting. We hopefully have found a way to chart through the mire we found ourselves in towards of meeting procedure. And it would appear that I incorrectly ruled against Councillor Lasser being able to introduce an amendment. So I'll actually pass to you, Councillor Lasser.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make an alternate motion to the amendment to the motion, being point 1, being point 2. Thank you, Robin, for having that up. Point 1 being adopt the procurement policy. Point 2, receive a report back to council with the review of the updated policy in the first quarter of 2022. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There's the motion, the amended motion. Seconder, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is it's a part of our process that this legislative obligation has to be done under the Local Government Act for those councillors who have concerns about the policy or the rate of money allocated to the CEO to be used as an operational matter. And I think that it's the procurement needs to come back to council for them to be satisfied that we've got a handle on it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lasser. Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Lasser, for coming up with a solution to move forward from the minefield that we found ourselves in. I'm happy with the policy. I was happy to support the policy, but I'm also happy enough to move that it comes back for a review early in the new year if that helps us moving forward. But I have total faith in our officers, and I have more than total faith in our CEO that they will always act honourably and do the right thing and save $1 wherever they can. So I'm more than happy with the policy as it stood.
Now the councillor wish to speak to the amendment. Councillor Lark.
Yes, I just want to reiterate, we do have a new composition in our council, and we have to be comfortable that the levels of delegation truly reflect what council wants to take responsibility for and how transparent we are in the first place with our community vis-a-vis the freedom that we give to administration. My view is that we haven't got that balance right, but I clearly, if we do that review in the next quarter, next year, then I'll be satisfied that it's run the gauntlet for all new councillors and existing councillors, rather than just rolling over and incrementally increasing levels of delegation without scrutiny to the extent that I would like to see.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Lark. Any other councillor wish to speak to the amendment? If not, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say that this in no way reflects on the ability of the CEO. She has my full confidence, but it's a lot of money that just is spent without being scrutinised by the councillor or being assessed and being transparent in our actions with the community. And I thank Councillor Lasser for finding this way forward, and I support the amendment.
Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Not Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to highlight that a contribution to delays in delivering projects in the past has been caused by the often cumbersome nature of thresholds, but also there are quarterly reports built into the new procurement policy. There's also it's also been significantly benchmarked against other councils, so it's nothing that's beyond what's already undertaken as best practice in other councils. And the Audit and Risk Committee has overseen this process, and the Audit and Risk Committee has expert advisors on it who are independent to council, who have already overseen it. So in that sense, there is significant transparency and oversight of this process.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor? Councillor Lasser. in the
I've
file?
got nothing further to add, Mr Mayor, just put the recommendation to the council.
All those in favour of the amendment, now just let me clarify this, that I understand it, this is to make it the substantive thing now, it's closed by Councillor Lang. Okay, so we're looking to accept the amendment at this stage, and those in favour? That's carried. Now we get to count, I've thrown to Councillor Lang for a reply before inadvertently or wrong, incorrectly as it turns out. Councillor Lang, do you still wish to close the debate on this? Now what becomes,
Thank you.
we'll put it to a vote now. The amended resolution becomes the resolution we're voting on. Those in favour? That's carried. We'll take a breath and move on to H14, award of tender number 21036, design and construction of oval lighting for Cowes, Dalyston and Inverloch Recreation Reserves. I'll ask Mr Mack to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Following a public tender process for the design and construction of oval lighting, it is recommended that RJC Electrical Solutions be awarded tender number 21036. The tender from RJC Electrical Solutions has been assessed as providing the best overall value for this project, and they have demonstrated that they have the necessary capacity, capability and experience to provide the required services. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Hey, Mr Mack, move for that motion. Councillor Tassari, seconded Councillor Lasser.
Thank you,
Councillor Tassari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's fantastic to see this finally come to council. We were successful in getting state funding for this some time ago, and we've gone through all the process of what we've had to do. It's going to be very, very exciting for the three sporting clubs that are involved in this, and I know firsthand that their facilities or their lighting facilities are still very, very substandard. So this will bring their lighting facilities up to where their current playing surfaces and rooms and such are. So it's a great moment for those three sporting clubs, and once again, it's just fantastic to see the level of investment by local council in our community groups, and particularly on this occasion our sporting groups. I'm more than happy to move to accept the tender.
Thank you, Councillor Tassari. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Tassari. This is a great opportunity for those three clubs. Bring them up to code. I get it. We know once daylight savings is finished, how early night comes around in Victoria. So this will keep them out there doing what they enjoy doing. So I think it's a great, a really good success story for those clubs. Thank you.
Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Tassari, shall we put that?
Put it to a vote.
Let's put it to a vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to H15, award of tender number 21025, Wonthaggi Guide Park Play Space. Mr Sturgeon, introduce the report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm really excited to present this contract award report for tender number 21025, Wonthaggi Guide Park Play Space. This terrific project will create an accessible and inclusive play space that includes sensory gardens, accessible sand play, a carousel, double flying fox, exercise equipment, a parkour course, and a large central climbing interactive structure. The theme of the playground links back to Wonthaggi's mining heritage. In addition, road, parking and amenity infrastructure works will be undertaken. The project is funded by Council's Capital Works program and supplemented with funding from Sport and Recreation Victoria and the Growing Suburbs Fund. A public tender process has been conducted and assessment made in line with Council's quadruple bottom line procurement policy. It is recommended that Council award contract 21025 to Plan Constructions Group Proprietary Limited for $1,566,075 plus GST, noting an increase in this project's budget as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Sturgeon. Can I have a mover of that, Councillor Tassari? Can I have a seconder? Councillor Lang. Councillor Tassari.
Congratulations to everybody that's been involved in. Congratulations to everybody that's been involved in this project for a long time. It's taken forever to get to this stage, but it's super exciting. I had a mother whose little child was so excited to be part of the consultation, what seems like 500 years ago, that probably has said now that he's going to be too old, unfortunately, to play on the playground. That's tongue in cheek. It's an exciting project. It's an exciting project for our community. It's an exciting project not only for Wonthaggi but for the whole of Bass Coast. And I don't mean any indictment on our staff at all for taking as long as it's taken to get to this stage. It's been a thorough process. It's been fantastically consulted with the community. Very transparent in everything that we've done. It's a great result, and I can't wait to see that playground start to get dug up, and their new playground. The design's fantastic, and it's a credit to everyone that's been involved.
Thank you to Councillor Tasari. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, I wanted to just say I'm sure many families will enjoy this, and it's great that we received state government funding for this project. So eternally grateful to the state government for those much needed funds to get this project going.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Any other councillor wish to speak to this motion? Not Councillor Tasari, put it to a vote.
I'd just like to, I forgot to thank the state government, not once but twice did they actually contribute funding to this project. So thank you very much to our state government as well.
And that's a good ad. Those in favour? That's carried. Which brings us to statutory reports. And I ask Councillor to move, and we'll seek a seconder, that agenda items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4 be considered as a block. And 1.5. It's not here. All right, and 1.5 be added as a block. Councillor Bauer, Councillor Tasari. Those in favour? That's carried. Now, so I'm also seeing that, does any councillor wish to discuss any items in those reports? No, but the I therefore seek a motion that the recommendation attached to agenda items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 and 1.5 be adopted. Move Councillor Tasari. Second, Councillor Kent. Those in favour? That's carried. There's no urgent business that I've been advised of. And now we have an announcement of the next meeting of council. The next council meeting will be held on the 16th February 2022 in the Bass Coast Civic Centre Council Chamber, Value Street East. Is that correct? Still correct? Yep. Commencing at 1 p.m. And now we have a motion that meeting be closed to members of the public pursuant to section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020. Consider an item to consider items as they deal with personal information.
Mr. Mayor, before we close, I think it'd be nice if you wished everybody a happy Christmas season.
We haven't closed. Yeah. All right, no, you're quite correct, but you just want to ham it up.
And
So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. There goes. This is an opportunity for our council to look observed. But anyway, well done, well done. And now can I have a motion, councillor move the motion I just read out? Yeah, Councillor Tasari, Councillor Bauer. Those in favour? Against, it's carried. Thank you for watching the live stream of Council's meeting. The meeting now will be closed to the public and will end today's live stream. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy
Merry
holidays.
Stay safe.
Merry Christmas.
Meeting is now adjourned.